And welcome back, guys, to the Run It Back podcast. I am your host, Joy. Alongside with me is Wes. How are you doing today, Wes?
Hi, Joy. Hi, Run It Back Nation. I'm doing well. Uh, Getting close to the holiday season, and
Yes, sir.
you know, I am ready for a long break after all this with work and all the crazy things going on in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, like holidays are coming, and now it's crazy, right? The F1 season is done. Abu Dhabi just finished, and yeah,
Oh, for sure. I mean, not not to be crass, but to be honest, I didn't think that there would be an F1 season this
yeah,
year in 2020,
yeah.
especially when the Olympics went down.
Mm.
But for the F1 as a competition to have, I believe it was 15 rounds. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joy.
Yes, I think 15 or 17. Yes.
Yeah, a little under 20,
Mm-hmm.
basically a full season.
Right.
It was very remarkable. A lot of ups, a lot of downs.
Mm.
Very, very interesting storylines, such as the obvious with Lewis winning his seventh world title, Mercedes winning their seventh constructors, Pierre Gasly, Checo Perez among the few to get their first wins, folks like Lando Norris getting on the podium.
Right.
A lot of different scenarios that played out, and it's been a pleasure to take part as a spectator throughout the whole season and witness history, one race at a time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I agree. I didn't really think that there was going to be a season this year. I thought at most we were going to have maybe 10 or 12 races, and it was going to be crazy because me and Jordan were talking about before the season even began that a failure, or someone has a failure in in the engine department, and then that's gonna throw a wrench in someone's championship. But yeah, in the most uncertainty, in the year that brought us the most uncertainty, Mercedes is still on top. Mercedes is still prepared for anything, and so yeah, I guess that's why they are the biggest news that's coming out of this Formula One season.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that the dust has been settled, congrats to Max Verstappen for bringing home the win
Yeah.
in that race. Congrats to Lewis Hamilton for getting it on the podium from his first race back
Congrats to
after
Bottas.
being sick. Yeah, Bottas for beating Lewis technically.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger story here, Joy,
Hmm.
the MAGAs, they're
The
back.
Megas.
McLaren,
The
they secured
McLarens.
third place in the Constructors' Championship. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I am damned. Okay, so for the listeners tonight, I said earlier in our podcasting season that Racing Point was going to be the third place team
Hmm.
because I wanted them to flip the middle fingers to all the other teams that put them down after they got their points taken away. But it turns out I'm wrong and I'm game. I'm a sportsman and nothing but congratulations towards the Woking outfit. They deserve it. They had to come back sometime, and no better time to come back to the realm of greatness in Formula One, except for right now.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I chose McLaren to win the best of the rest this season. I think it's because it was more about their consistency. I just trust their drivers a little bit more than Racing Point. And yeah, there was kind of this like weight on Racing Point's shoulder to prove everyone why they deserve to be the best of the rest. But I thought McLaren is on the rise, and they've proven it this year. They could pretty much go through challenges. This was the, I think even last season it came down to the very last race, and so yeah. it's gonna be exciting to see where McLaren goes from here, right? Because they're gonna go get their McLaren and their Mercedes engines. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a improvement, but I think they're gonna be right there, right behind Red Bull, and they could probably challenge Red Bull next season. But yeah, that's for next season. So yeah, other than that, West, the farewells, um, I think you will agree with me that the most saddest farewell of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was Perez because he didn't really get to finish the race. He didn't get to go halfway, and he had to finish his race with an engine failure.
Yes, the farewells are probably the biggest part of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, brutally honestly speaking. Outside of boring racing, to me, that's probably the best part. But to answer your question, Joy, yes, Checo's DNF was pretty sad, given that he will be going to a new team this coming season, which is quite a big deal
Quite a big,
in
yeah,
today's Formula One news. But I would also contend that Sebastian Vettel's was pretty sad too,
absolutely, absolutely,
because he was so dominant, practically on top of the world when he was at Red Bull.
mm,
Goes to Ferrari to follow in the footsteps of his idol, Michael Schumacher.
right,
And the expectations were so high. And don't get me wrong, for a while, it looked like at some point Vettel was going to live up to
yeah,
expectations, right?
absolutely, absolutely. There was
But
like 2 years where everyone thought like, yeah, this is gonna be the year.
yeah, but it just so happens that they run into a buzzsaw named Lewis Hamilton and
Yeah,
Mercedes.
it's funny you said that because I don't know if you know Maurizio Arrivabene. He was the former team principal of Ferrari. He said that they know how to beat Mercedes and they know how to beat Valtteri Bottas. They don't know how to beat Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, and with that sentiment, it goes to show how different of an animal Lewis Hamilton
Right.
is,
Absolutely.
right? And how great he is as a racer. But all in all, with Sebastian Vettel, given how harsh he is on himself as well as those that care about his success,
Right.
it was a very bittersweet ending, I feel, when he crossed the line in Abu Dhabi, because we're all used to him singing his songs after a victory,
Right.
but he sung a long song, not only thanking the Scuderia, but he did it in defeat, which goes to show that he's very gracious
Yeah.
and he's very thankful for the time that he had at
Yeah.
Ferrari, because not too many people in this world, right, get to drive the Ferrari Formula One car, let alone Ferrari in general.
Right. Absolutely. And not
So
only that, like having Ferrari choose you to be the next big thing. But yeah, I totally agree. It was very emotional hearing him say, goodbye to Ferrari because he loves Ferrari so much, even though it seems as though, you know, he hasn't had the best seasons with them the previous 2 seasons. So yeah, it was emotional, but like, I think now he's excited to just kind of step back and like, you know, gain a new perspective with a new team.
absolutely gain perspective with the new team. It's funny because it's going to be his what, third or fourth different engine in as many teams too.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. I mean, he has driven Ferrari engines before in a Toro Rosso, but like moving on to a Mercedes, I don't think he's ever driven a Mercedes. He's driven a BMW, I think, but
Right.
yeah, he's never driven a Mercedes.
Yeah, no, and despite the way he carries himself in the Parc Ferme, you could tell that he's quite curious about why Mercedes is why what it is,
Right,
right?
absolutely.
So for him to come to Aston Martin and get behind a up and coming team with a lot of backing and a lot of support, as well as a very, very historical home ground in Silverstone,
Right.
I think it'll give him new perspective. I think it'll give him new confidence going in, especially when he has a teammate that will not only challenge him, but also give him lots of opportunity to succeed.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, so let's yeah, well said, Wes. With that being said, let's move on to our Bulls and Bears. So to all of our listeners, this is the segment where we choose the drivers that um, you know are on the come up, or like, these are the drivers that you want to watch, and the Bears are going to be the drivers you don't want to keep an eye on. It's very market based, right, Wes?
Yeah, so the concept of bulls and bears is a stock market
Right.
inspired term. So to put into layman's terms, the bulls are who to watch, who's hot.
Hmm.
Bears are who's not to watch, who's not. So I will start off the
Absolutely.
recap of our Abu Dhabi review and my bulls heading into that race, which still can't believe it's been a week. But anyway,
3 for 3,
was
Wes. First time.
3 for 3, yes, perfect. On the last race, thank God. I picked Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris.
Hmm.
So Verstappen went out and won the race. He was due, and also he's been driving a hell of a season, right? It was
Absolutely.
only a matter of time where he got that signature win at any given round. Lewis, coming off the sickness, was showing a lot of pace throughout the weekend. And for him to put it in third and keep it in third, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll
It's
take it.
podium
I think
places.
he'll take it too. Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah. Like for me, if he's outside looking in, that's a big problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And thankfully that didn't happen. And third, I think is probably the biggest magnitude out of all, Lando Norris. Lando helped or basically secured third place for McLaren.
absolutely.
And I think he's showing his signs of greatness. He's growing up right before all of our eyes.
Right.
Right? I mean, of course you could make that case last season. However, now it's like we're no longer seeing him as a kid.
Yeah. It's
he,
weird. Will you see him as the leader of McLaren next year?
yes,
For
yes, I do.
No, no, with Ricardo stepping in?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I do because just because he looks nice and harmless and outright funny on the outside doesn't mean he's a not a tough competitor.
Right.
The guy will race. The guy will drive. And if Daniel Ricciardo goes in there with a sense of entitlement going into Woking, he's going to be in for a rude awakening
Right.
with the number 4 car next to him.
Number
But
4 and number 3.
number 4 and number 3, that's right. And but Lando, people, I'm telling you right now, take Lando Norris seriously. He's a part of that golden generation with
Absolutely.
George, as well as Leclerc and Max. It's going to be special for the next few years of Formula One racing.
Right. And I love that you still added Lewis to your Bulls. I mean, it's very safe, right? But it's funny because Ted Kravitz in his notebook, when Russell failed to win the race, secure the race through no fault of his own, Ted Kravitz mentioned that, when in the Mercedes factory, like, or in the Mercedes grand scheme of things, if one little thing changes, everything else kind of goes haywire, right? Like, without Lewis there sitting in that seat, with George Russell, then everything just falls out of sync. Which is it was a great, it was a strange but unique perspective. I kind of agree. Like, whenever back in Germany, when Mercedes dressed up like in the 1950s, they weren't used to it, and it kind of threw them off. And then things just changed, and like, yeah, like, I don't know. That was such a weird perspective. But now that Mercedes is back, I don't think I think Lewis is gonna come back even stronger next year, seeing Verstappen win the last race of the season.
For sure. I mean, have you all seen that meme where Michael Jordan's sitting on that couch and the words go, and I took it personally?
Yeah.
Well, given that Lewis is probably the greatest driver of his generation and probably of our generation too, as an athlete in general, since he's so damn competitive, I wouldn't be surprised if he took that win, or yeah, that win by Max as personal, right?
Absolutely.
Or George Russell whooping that Bottas ass in Bahrain as personal, right?
Yeah.
Because Formula Internet went nuts when George was dominating just about 95% of that race.
Yeah.
So, yes, I don't see why we wouldn't get a rejuvenated COVID-free Lewis Hamilton in 2021, especially when the car for the most part is exactly the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know if this is correct, but the last time I saw someone win Abu Dhabi that isn't Lewis Hamilton was Nico Rosberg, and the next year he won the world championship. So we'll see. We will see. That's like I said. That's what I love about sports. We could make all the predictions. We're still gonna see what's gonna happen sooner than later. So yeah,
For sure, Joy. And I'm sure 2021 is going to be one hell of a season because there's a brand that starts with H and ends with A that needs to put some business down in
absolutely,
2021. Just
absolutely.
saying.
The very last year. Let's do it.
But Bears, let's go on to Bears.
Let's go on the Bears.
Bottas, Vettel, Leclerc. Now, you all are probably wondering, Wes, you just put out that sentiment for Sebastian. Why the hell are you dogging him now? Well, one, this was made a week and a half ago,
Right.
these predictions. And the stat sheet doesn't lie.
Right.
Vettel and Leclerc did not finish anywhere near where they would want to be.
Right. I mean, that could be no fault of their own as well.
Absolutely,
it's just a
100%.
car.
Yes, yes. And now both men don't have to deal with that anymore. Bye-bye SF1000 or whatever the code name of the car was. Right, SF1000?
Yes. SF1000 is the car right now. Do you know the new car that they're gonna call it next season?
Well, I'm not worried about that right now, Joey. Let's focus on the topic at hand.
Yeah.
But yes, the SF1000 is gone. They brought it home.
Right.
And hopefully Vettel can get the mental image off of that while Leclerc can take that personal and go to next season with a vengeance, right?
It's funny because Ferrari gave Vettel a massive trophy, and they didn't give Raikkonen one.
I don't think Raikkonen's in it for trophies.
I don't think so either, to be honest. But yeah.
But anyhow,
yeah,
hold
go
on.
ahead.
Yes. And Valtteri Bottas, I'll take the loss on that one.
Yeah.
Of course, it sounded like a safe pick at the time because he was in such a rut that
he was in disarray, to be honest.
You were just like, oh no, Bottas version whatever still doesn't work. But hey, he brought it home in second this time, so props to him. He will stay with Mercedes for at least another year.
Right.
Can he take the fight to Lewis? I don't know. But for now, he gets to end the season strong on a high note. And that's kind of what you need, especially when you're struggling anything, right?
Right.
A strong end to your season. So those are my Bears and Bulls for that week. And I can't wait to do it again in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, let's go through my Bulls. So for my Bulls, I picked Russell, Sainz, and Gasly. Now, okay, it wasn't the best result, for me. But George Russell finished P15. Not really anything there. We've seen him do better. Finishing P12. I think I would have taken that as a win if he finished P12. But P15, he usually finishes P15. So it's kind of like he's getting used to finishing P15. Hopefully next year they get him a better car that could get to Q2s regularly. So yeah, and then Sainz, obviously P6, right? So P6 it helped secure the McLaren P3 in the constructors as well, right? But not as much as Lando's would, because even with the penalty, I think if they enforced the penalty on Sainz, I think Lando would have just made it clear, right, Wes? Because the P4 would have been, and Stroll only finished P10, giving him 1 point. And so, yeah, still, I think this is a great result um, for the last race of his McLaren career for Sainz.
Yeah, absolutely. Great closing on what was a good 2 years
Absolutely.
with them. He was pretty much the catalyst on helping them get back to where they need to be.
Absolutely.
And in turn, McLaren was very thankful for his services. And penalties, what penalties, no penalties, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't
Um,
really matter.
he was able
Because,
to support Lando in leaving no doubt
right,
that McLaren was going to finish third in the Constructors' Championship. And especially with a lot of finals, too, right?
right,
Because that will be the last time for a while that Carlos will be driving anything Renault in the back of his car,
right,
too.
right.
So
Could be
for
a
that
good thing or
to,
bad thing.
it could be a good thing or bad thing, yes. But yeah, he did his job, and he's been doing his job for the last 2 years with the
Yeah,
Woking outfit. And let's see how he does over in Maranello.
absolutely. And if you guys haven't had the chance to watch, I highly recommend McLaren's video on pretty much addressing to Ferrari and to Tifosi a gift that they've given to Ferrari. It was pretty much signs, and they told the Tifosi and Ferrari to take care of him because that's how much they love him. That's how much they love signs at McLaren. So it was a very nice touch. And also Zach Brown does not know how to speak any Italian, but he was very funny. I love Zach Brown.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, and then so Pierre Gasly, I also picked. I mean, he finished on the points. You know, this is an AlphaTauri that's it's supposed to go every. You know, it's supposed to qualify like in Q2 at least hit Q2 almost every weekend. But I think this is a good win. You know, P8 for Pierre Gasly, solid points for AlphaTauri. You know, AlphaTauri is never going to be a team that's going to challenge for best of the rest. I don't think Red Bull wants that. I don't think Helmut Marko wants that. I don't think they want these two teams to get anywhere close to each other. But it is quite. I think that it's why, like, you know, when AlphaTauri wins a race, especially in their hometown, it just becomes even more poetic, even more beautiful. And so yeah, that pretty much. Would you 2 out of 3? Yeah, 2 out of 3. I don't think Russell counts as a win, to be honest. So that's probably my best result all season long. So that's not bad. Um, not as good as Wes's though. 3 out of 3. But yeah, let's move on to my Bears. I had Albon, Kvyat, and Fittipaldi. Now, depending on who you talk to, this could be either a win or a loss for Alex Albon, right? Because his teammate dominated the entire race. The Mercedes were nowhere close. This is, you know, this threw such a spanner in Mercedes. A lot of people are saying, could this be the turning point in the fight against Mercedes? Because they couldn't catch up with Verstappen at all, which is it's interesting. And so yeah, you know, Alex Albon, solid P4. He was 1 second away from Hamilton at the end. He would have passed Hamilton if, you know, there was like maybe one more lap or 2 more laps. He just had a much better strategy. But yeah, you know, too little, too late. Albon couldn't catch Hamilton enough, and who knows? Who knows what a podium here could have done for Alex Albon? But I think it was already written on the wall, and so yeah. Even for Kvyat, Kvyat P11, so close to P10, but you know, Lance pretty much had it under control for Abu Dhabi. Lance just didn't seem to have the pace, but Kvyat didn't have the pace either. He just kind of stayed in 11th throughout the race, and so yeah. And Fittipaldi, you know, I hate picking Fittipaldi because it's kind of like I'm bullying him. You know, like you don't really expect Fittipaldi to come in here and wow us, right? And yeah, he pretty much effectively finished last, P19. With that being said, like, I love Pietro Fittipaldi. I love him and his brother, his Twitch stream. He's you could tell he's just a really nice guy, but I think he's been out of Formula One or just racing in general too long, and it kind of affected him. And stepping into a seat pretty much 2/3 of the season into the season, you're not gonna perform well, with 2 races left. And so yeah, I'm proud of Fittipaldi, but again, it wasn't the result that I think if he got like P15, then yes, I would have counted it as a win. It's not, so right now I'm 2 out of no. Well, how about you, Wes? Would you consider Albon's a win?
I'm glad you asked, and I do think it was.
Okay, so I was 2 out of 3.
P4, especially when, for the most part, the season has been pretty rough.
Mm.
I will also say Albon was starting to gain form towards the end of the season,
Absolutely.
making it harder for Red Bull to axe him,
Right.
despite Formula One internet going,
Yeah.
do it now.
Yeah. More on that
But every
later.
time that's
More on that
every
story
time-
later.
yes, every time that has occurred, it seemed like Albon had found a way to escape that, at
Right.
least temporarily. But yes, I do want to have a go at Fittipaldi. Yes, I understand that he's been out for quite a while, and his last open wheel action was IndyCar, I
Right.
believe, right?
Right.
IndyCar and Formula 2.
Yep.
So, my question to you is, Joy, given that Haas was in a bit of a pinch, right? It wouldn't have made sense for them to go out and get Nico Hulkenberg.
No. Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have made sense to try and rush a Schumacher or a Eilert or a Mazepin
Right.
up, right?
Right.
So how do you think, say Pietro Fittipaldi was out of the picture, what if they chose Delatraz instead?
Ooh. Yeah.
Because you were, and I was giving you crap about this because Fittipaldi is American born. He is a U.S. citizen, and Joy and I are also fellow Americans. So of course we want to back our men and women out there in the competition. But
Right.
Joy, for whatever reason, chose not to do that. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to pick on him.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I like Haas's decision here. They're one of the few teams that actually picked the reserve drivers. It seems as though no one was picking the reserve drivers throughout the season when they needed it. Pretty much the super substitute Hulk always stepped in. But I think, it was more of a touching gesture to allow Fittipaldi to kind of drive the car, right? Even though it was undrivable, the Haas. I'm not gonna say I think he's earned that position as a reserve driver for Haas, alongside with Louis Delatraz. But yeah, I just didn't think he was gonna, out of all the things that he doesn't have the experience. He has good pace, but he needs more time. So that's why I kind of chose him. It was kind of a safe bet, to be honest. But with that being said, I mean, he did finish right behind Magnussen, who finished 18th. So, I mean, there was no way, even Magnussen, with his talent and with his experience, couldn't even get the car past P15. So yeah, maybe I'm a little too hard on Fittipaldi, to be honest. But yeah, I mean,
Hey,
yeah.
hey! You didn't answer my question, dude.
What's up?
I asked you, how do you think Delatraz would have fared if it were to be Delatraz instead?
I think he would have been a little bit closer with Magnussen, because Fittipaldi was 2 laps down. Magnussen was only 1 lap down, and so I think Delatraz would have been on that same lap with Magnussen when they finished, probably a couple tenths apart, even in quali. So yeah, I think Delatraz would have been a little bit more better, a little bit more consistent. During the practice, Pietro was he couldn't get the confidence in the brakes and in the car, which I don't blame him. That's a shit car, to be honest, in the Haas. But I think it'll be better next season. I think it'll be better in the 2022 season. So yeah, hopefully, maybe in the future, the car will be better, and hopefully Pietro does even have a chance to try it again, maybe as a test driver, as a reserve. But yeah, I think he deserves it.
Fair enough.
Okay. But yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, I mean, let's was there anything else that you want to cover, Wes?
No, no.
Yeah.
I think we
Farewell to
hit it
Kvyat.
on the head. Yes. Farewell to Kvyat.
Yeah.
Um, farewell to a lot of drivers under previous teams. I think the biggest farewell also belongs to Roman Grosjean
Roman. Yes, yes.
and
Go.
Magnussen as well.
Yes. Well, I think we spoke about it on the last pod, right? Like, pretty much Magnussen will move on to IMSA. He will be driving for Chip Ganassi, which is exciting. I can't wait to see how he represents Formula One there. It's probably pretty close to Formula One. These things are LM, like these things are prototypes, so they're kind of like the LMP ones and LMP twos that you see in Le Mans. So it'll be interesting. Grosjean, he's thought about retirement even before the season began. He wants to start, wants to spend more time with the family. So congrats to Roman. I love the new helmet that he wanted to wear during the last race, but I think that was beautiful touch. Kvyat though, very interesting. Right, where does he go from here? Before he actually joined AlphaTauri, West, I don't know if you knew this, but he was actually the Ferrari test driver. So in those years of limbo where he wasn't driving in Formula One, he was actually the test driver for Ferrari.
Yes, I am well aware of his
Yeah.
story. He is a victim of the helmet Marco
Yep.
quick rotation,
Quick rotation.
and of course, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to him when he was trying to look for solutions in his career to be a test driver for Ferrari.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that his work was very well documented to where he was able to come back into that program,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why the hell would you want to go back to the place that threw you away? But at the same time,
Yeah.
there's more lucrativeness to being actually on the grid rather than testing and providing data to the two other
Oh,
guys ahead of you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could ask any of those reserve drivers or test drivers. You could ask Stoffel Van Dorn. Um, I'm pretty sure he would rather prefer being on the grid, like making, having that security that you're going to be on the grid for next race, right?
Yes, and the same can be said for Esteban Ocon
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it for our Bulls and Bears. Let's move on to hot laps, right? So this segment is gonna be the F1 news, the biggest F1 news and rumors that we come across pretty much through social media, our sources, and so yeah, Wes, let's start off with the biggest news that was announced even after we made this pre-pod. Our pre-pod notes. Perez to Red Bull. Albon is out as a reserve. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's a good move by Red
Okay.
Bull.
Hmm. Now, we gave our thoughts on this already. We thought that they were gonna pick Hulkenberg because Hulkenberg is a little bit better suited to be a wingman driver. Perez has never really been a wingman driver in his career. So yeah, it's interesting, right?
Well, it could be. I mean, the case for Wingman, you could also say, well, couldn't that have been the design for when he was paired up with Jensen? But I mean, for him to be a second driver and for him to show the form that he had towards the end of this season, I think it was enough for Red Bull to do
Yeah.
the move on him,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
have him alongside Max. And you could say that's recency bias. You could say that's just forecasting on whether he would continue that form into the following season, given that Hulkenberg hasn't had a full time drive,
Right.
right? And I think he's done, by he, I mean Checo. Checo has done enough to show that he can be very capable in a very superior car,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And this would be the ideal test for that,
Right. Absolutely.
especially in this climate, especially with a driver that is ruthless in every way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the person, or like, the organization that is kind of nervous about this move has to be Mercedes, right? Because now it's more about Bottas versus Perez, Hamilton versus Verstappen. Because if Perez ends up, performing well in Red Bull, and he is just a couple tenths off of Verstappen, I mean, you're pretty much, we're talking about, like, the strategy game, the mind games playing between Red Bull and Mercedes. Like, I can only imagine just like the undercuts and the overcuts, trying to one up each other on the strategy. If there's a chance, like, I can imagine all these scenarios if Sergio Perez does feel comfortable with the car. I think he does have enough experience to feel comfortable with the car. But yeah, it's insane because we have spoken about this in the past. Sergio does struggle when he has a car that has a very happy rear end. Um, you could look, a couple years ago when the Force India and the Racing Point, the first year Racing Point, they were pretty happy in the tail. They couldn't understand why the rears were lacking so much downforce, and he didn't like the car, and so he couldn't really put it into positions where he could attack. And so, this is the thing, right? I love it because we're about to be either proven wrong, proven right, and I can't wait. I can't wait. So, any predictions, Wes, for Perez? I know it's really early, but I think this is gonna be good when we look back at it.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to add that despite Perez struggling with wheel to wheel, he is still willing to scrap
Absolutely.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And he also is one of the best at tire management, if not the
I
best.
think he is one, probably second to Lewis.
Absolutely. So for him to be on a car that is a lot better than what he has driven over the past 5 years, let's
Right.
just say, so be it. This is probably the best chance he'll get throughout his Formula One career to be in an elite car, elite situation. And my prediction, my way too early prediction for Checo is that I think he will finish as high as P3, but no less than P4.
Okay. Okay. In the constructors, you mean, or in the drivers' championship?
In the
Okay.
drivers, I think Red
Wow.
Bull is gonna show everyone that, especially to Ferrari, that hey, we are the second best.
Team.
We're
Right.
not the alphas yet, but we're damn close.
Right. Absolutely. And like, I think this move speaks a whole lot more than people thought. That it's not just Albon losing his seat. It's also kind of another goodbye for Hulkenberg, right? Because now there's no more seats available in Formula One.
Yeah, it's tough because Hulkenberg is a fan favorite,
Right.
and I think Albon is a fan favorite too.
Yeah.
So for the both of them to no longer have seats in the active Formula One grid, it sucks,
Mm.
for lack of a better term. But hey, that's sports. That's how ruthless sports can be, and Formula One is no different.
Right.
But for what it's worth, at least Albon gets to stay within the Red Bull conglomerate, right?
Right. Right.
So
And
he still gets to put on his navy blue Puma shirt, and his input will still be very important.
Right. Absolutely.
It's not like what I thought that he was going to get cut completely,
Right.
which is not
Absolutely.
the case. He's now
Yeah.
just the guy in waiting. So say something happened to Max or Checo, God forbid,
God forbid.
he'll be right there.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll see him in FPs every now and then as well.
Absolutely.
So
And so, yeah, I guess
it,
that's the other point I wanted to ask you about is there even an opportunity for Albon to prove himself, that he deserves a seat because, we're kind of, probably hopefully the vaccines will be out by then, by the time of the new season. And at that time, you could pretty much make it the argument that Perez and Max will just race the entire season unless Perez struggles. And so, do you see a way where Albon can prove himself that he does deserve a seat maybe after the season? And yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I think everyone tends to forget that Checo Perez's deal is a 1 year deal
Right.
with Red Bull. So they're just taking a flyer on him,
Mm.
despite him doing quite well. This has been a career year for
Right.
Checo.
Right.
So chances are he could come back to Red Bull. What happens with AlphaTauri plays a big role too.
Absolutely.
What if Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda just go nuts? That
Right.
would be bad. That would be bad for Albon. But
Yeah.
say
Absolutely.
say there's some kind of rotation involving Pierre Gasly and Checo Perez,
Right.
Albon could still be within the program. But if not, then you have other teams, I'm sure, that would be willing to take them, like a Williams, like
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
maybe an Alpha, maybe that I can't say for sure.
Right.
So because Ferrari, Mercedes, they don't have a place for a guy like Albon, as good as he is.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and you hit it right on the head, Wes. It also still depends on AlphaTauri. We've seen it with Daniil Kvyat when they were looking for another driver to take the seat in AlphaTauri, and then they pretty much called Kvyat and said, do you want the seat back? Which could very well be possible for Alex Albon, and I hopefully like he'll be ready at that time. Um, but yeah, you also hit it on the head. Like Perez is only on a 1 year deal. Now, do you think that he's only on a 1 year deal because next year Red Bull believes that is their best chance to win against Mercedes, and that maybe after 2022, everything's reset, so they don't really know where they're gonna be?
Possibly. I
Okay.
mean, the thing that I've noticed about Red Bull and the race has also talked about it as well in their Mercedes dominance breakdown that Red Bull only thinks about what's happening right now.
Right now, right? They want to win right now.
Right. And of course, from just by looking at it from a textbook management standpoint, you want to be mindful of the future.
Right.
And for a team like Red Bull, who's only, at least based on what we've seen, focused on winning or doing good right now,
Mm.
it could be a sign that, yeah, we're only signing Perez because we want to put the best team out there for 2021.
Right.
And 2022, when we got the new car, we got the new regulations, we might have to take a different line because technically everyone would be starting from zero. And that is a big technically.
That is, yeah, that's a big technically, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, which is going to be interesting, right? So, really early predictions, I think Red Bull might take constructors, but I think, Hamilton might take drivers again. I think he'll win his 8th world championship. I just don't think Bottas will be there, just like he was. But this latter half of the season. But yeah, now let's move on to Alonso, right? So Fernando Alonso, for some of you that don't know, Alonso took participated in the young drivers test for F1 in Abu Dhabi. Now, emphasis on the young drivers test. So pretty much Renault um, went to the FIA and said, you know, can we test Alonso during the young driver test? And the reason behind it is Alonso never participated in any final practice running, so he never actually, got stepped inside this year's car. And FIA said, yeah, why not? Because Alonso is pretty much good for the sport. His name alone brings a lot of attraction. And yeah, his name brings a lot more attraction now because in this year's Renault, he pretty much topped the timing sheets. He pretty much topped the timing sheets with Nick De Vries and Stoffel Van Dorn in this year's Mercedes. He was able to beat them by 0.2 of a second. He beat Nick De Vries by 0.2 of a second, which is insane. It shows how much more experience he is. It shows that he still has pace. But I think it also shows Renault's progress, right? Like Renault, back then, it was the Renault cars or the Renault Formula One cars. They never seemed stable, especially around the slow corners. They were very twitchy. But now I think they figured that out, and they've actually given Alonso a very scary car, and he will be very scary this upcoming season. Maybe Renault might be the biggest challengers to McLaren. Maybe it's also a three-way battle again for Aston Martin, McLaren, and Renault. But yeah, your thoughts, Wes, on Alonso?
I still don't understand. I mean, it sounds more like a gentleman's race than
Oh, absolutely.
a young driver's test. It was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was cool to see Stoffel Van Dorn. It was cool to see Nick De Vries, who I'm pretty high on. Eilert, Schumacher, Sonoda, Vips, Buemi. Guys that I've seen in other competitions. I will say there was another old guy in the young driver's test, Robert Kubica.
Kubica, yep.
Or Manu Ginobili for all my basketball fans out
He
there.
kind of does look like Manu.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might have been. I think we'll never know why that exception came to be, especially for those two guys. It could be because of name. It could be because of whatever, God knows what reason.
Well, actually, what do you call it? Renault kind of, what do you call it? They kind of threatened the FIA because Renault, does fund young drivers more than any other Formula One company. They pretty much fund Formula Renault, which a lot of Formula One champions have come from, and that's pretty much their big reasoning for it. Renault pretty much came to the FIA and said, like, look, we're the manufacturer that funds these young drivers. We might as well have this opportunity to test out Alonso. And I mean, make that what you will. It's still, Alonso is not a young driver, and he's a two-time world champion. Of course he's going to go faster than all these guys. Of course he's going to be a lot more comfortable.
Exactly. But if we're going to talk about the performance aspect of it, I am quite impressed.
Right.
That Fernando Alonso was able to top the timesheet in a car that's technically slower than the rest of the field ahead of it, i.e. the Mercedes, i.e. the Red Bull, i.e. the McLaren, if there was any McLaren testing that day.
There wasn't.
Yeah, well...
Yeah.
But,
But
still,
you're correct.
Statistically,
you were correct. Mercedes and Red Bull should have been ahead of him still.
Yeah, and speaking of Mercedes too, yes, Nick De Vries and Stoffel Van Dorn are very talented, and I'm glad that they were able to keep it up top. right?
Mm.
But at the same time, it goes to show that George really is a once in a generation talent.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to go off in an odd tangent, but yeah, it goes to show that George is a once in a generational talent. But at the same time, since we are making it about Fernando Alonso, he should be able to bring Alpine in firing range to make things interesting, especially in the
Absolutely.
midfield.
Absolutely. I 100% agree, Wes. So, yeah, I also expect Renault to be really close to the podium positions. So it'll be interesting next season. But yeah, let's move on to your guy, Wes, or our guy, but it's more your guy. I never actually knew about this guy before I started talking to you, but Yuki Tsunoda coming out of nowhere from Formula 2, and now he has his super license points and he will drive for AlphaTauri.
Yes, sir. The FIA Rookie of the Year. The
Yeah,
guy was a damn phoenix in Formula 2. Even though he didn't win, for him to be on there in his first year, to be so close to the top,
right,
if certain things went another way, maybe he would have won the thing over Eilert and Schumacher, right?
right.
And that would have been just a great shocker. But, Red Bull has a great young prospect on their hands in Yuki Tsunoda. And he might be able to do something that other Japanese drivers ahead of him didn't do,
Right.
and that is be great.
Mm.
And when he did the test at Imola with AlphaTauri, he seemed to do pretty good. He seemed to adjust very well.
Right.
He seemed to adapt to the conditions in a car that's much more superior than the Carlin that he drives or he driven in Formula 2.
Right.
And I will say the only thing that I will be concerned about is his conditioning. He has been on record saying that his neck is not strong enough to handle the Formula One car.
Right.
So hopefully during the off season he will work on that, and by preseason testing he'll be good to go. And him and Pierre will be a good pairing going into Melbourne.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually saw those reports as well. Like, it's fun. It's like a little bit weird to see that he's actually the lightest and the shortest driver. Now, I mean, the shortness is not going to do anything about it. I mean, Fernando Alonso's pretty short, but he's actually one of the lightest. I think he is the lightest Formula One driver this upcoming season. And yeah, it's weird because Lewis has always said like it's hard for him to maintain a 150-pound weight. I think Yuki is like around 120. So
Yeah,
it'll
he's
be
like
interesting.
125, 130.
Yeah,
And I mean, even just by looking at him, he's quite thin,
right. He's
and
quite
he's shorter than me. So
right,
I stand around 5'5.5", 5'6".
right.
He's like 5'4", 5'3.5".
Mm.
So the guy is literally like a flyweight boxer, but driving around, or like a horse jockey,
right, right,
but he's gonna be driving a thing that's at least 1,000 horsepower.
right.
But for what it's worth, at least he's aware of his physical flaws going into the upcoming season, and he knows that he needs to work on that.
Right.
So I hope that that ship is righted by the time, like I said, testing and round one comes around. And I know or not but we know that the expectations are going to be very high. So I could imagine him struggling the first couple rounds, but maybe after time he will get his footing right, and from there he will be able to hold his own, if not do better than Pierre Gasly in his first full Formula One season.
I actually secretly would love to see him do better than Pierre Gasly. I mean, this is what we've always argued, right, Wes? Like we want the best of the best talent to be in Formula 2, and Yuki Tsunoda comes out of nowhere and pretty much takes over Formula 2. Of course, he didn't win the championship, but I mean, so much so that like he's now in Formula 1. He's earned that seat, and yeah, I'm so excited that finally like there's a driver that is super talented, that has a lot of potential, and he will be in Formula One after just 1 year in Formula Two.
It's remarkable, right?
Right.
Granted, we've seen it before.
Right.
I think Albon and Russell were only in Formula
Yes.
2 for a year before they came up,
Yes.
and I think Lando as well,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the golden generation again. So
Right.
yeah, I mean we're in. I think we're in for a treat,
Right.
and yeah, it's a good move also on the Red Bull AlphaTauri side of the department.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Yuki actually grow. I feel like there's a lot of changes that we're gonna witness from Yuki. But yeah, pretty much the last hot laps that we pretty much touched on is that because Callum Ilott finished second in the Formula 2 championship, um, and there's no more seats available for the Ferrari B teams, you could call them, for the Haas's and the Alfa Romeos. Callum Ilott will be a test driver for Ferrari, which is it's not a bad position to be in. Um, but man, that means Callum is, he's not going to be fully committed to a series that he has to like compete in. Unfortunately, he can't compete in Formula 2 anymore. He can't come back. I don't even think Ferrari would have him back because there's just so much talent that is going through Ferrari right now. But yeah, he's got the short end of the stick. Don't you agree, Wes?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yes. I actually thought that Islet was going to go to Haas at first.
Me as well.
And when that roster was released, I was not particularly happy with one of the drivers that took those seats. And however, it is what it is. We can't pout, whine, and complain about it much more because it's not going to change anything, at least for the time being, given that there is some kind of turmoil going on at Haas.
Right.
But for what it's worth, Islet should take advantage of this opportunity because normal people like you and me, Joy, we would bite at the chomp, or chomp at the bit. I mean, bite at the chomp. That should be a new term, by the way.
Yeah.
We would bite at the chomp to be a part of anybody's program,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Even Williams,
As a
right?
test driver, I would love to.
Absolutely. So for Islet, he needs to go in there with a positive attitude, learn the Ferrari way, albeit at a different vantage point, provide good input, provide valuable insight, and as long as he can do that, as long as he does his job, I'm sure, the Maranello folks will give him a chance someday. Is it going to be with them? Who knows? I can't speak for either side, right? But for me, I think this is a pretty good opportunity for him.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Wes. But yeah. I would absolutely, if I given the chance, man, I would be the Williams test driver. Fuck it. I mean, I don't. I would love to have the opportunity. But yeah, Wes, I wanted to close Hot Laps with one small news that came out that Toto Wolff has extended with Mercedes for 3 years. Now, this is huge because what does this mean for Lewis Hamilton? It seems as though like there was a narrative forming around Lewis and Toto that Lewis wouldn't sign if Toto didn't sign, right? Like if Toto's future is secured, then you pretty much secured the future of Lewis Hamilton. So 3 years is not a lot actually in Formula One. Think about it. After this upcoming season, and then the 2022 regulations, and then a year after that, that's a pretty short time. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to set up Mercedes' future into the new generations of cars, into the new regulations of cars. But the thing is, will Lewis be there for the ride? Lewis has stated that he wants to continue for a couple more years into Formula One, but we will see. We will see if he still wants to go through that venture. Like Lewis is such a he's such a very he's a person that's interested in a lot of things, right? And so I don't ever think he's gonna get bored with Formula One, but I think when he does sense that he's losing a little bit of his abilities, I think Lewis strikes me as the kind of guy that will go out when he's at the top. You never. I don't think Lewis wants anyone to ever see him falter, and so I don't know. I think this move by Toto and Mercedes plays a huge factor into Mercedes' future and maybe the Mercedes drivers' futures.
Well, it's not a small story by any means.
Absolutely.
Let's make that clear. But seeing Toto for 3 more years, one, that's great, right? Because you did mention earlier that one little thing that changes can really upset the balance at Mercedes.
Absolutely.
And right now, I can't imagine a Mercedes without Toto Wolff.
I can't either.
And because he's put so much into that team.
Mm.
And in a way, you could say Mercedes owes Toto a lot.
Right.
But for 3 years, yes, it's not really a long time. So that's the last year of this car, and then 2 years of the new era.
Right.
And when you got people like Stoffel Van Dorn, Nick De Vries, George Russell, Esteban Ocon waiting,
right,
you got a lot of decisions to make, especially given that Lewis and Valtteri Bottas are getting up there in age.
Absolutely.
But speaking of Lewis, while we're on it, I think it makes things easier from a negotiation perspective. It gives leverage to Lewis.
It's like
that
he knows,
be willing to stay.
Yeah, it's like he knows someone from the other side of the negotiating table.
Yeah, exactly. It'll give him leverage to stay, to not take an early retirement or whatever, because I cannot see him driving for anybody else.
Right.
Given that I understand that Lewis, that he has a lot of other interests in mind. He has X44.
Right.
He has XNDA. He's got his dogs, his family.
Right.
He's got...
I believe he's starting his own clothing line as well.
Well, there you go. But at the moment, he has Puma and Tommy Hilfiger.
Right.
There's a lot of things going on his plate, and I know that he knows that we know that Formula One can be quite demanding.
Absolutely.
For him, given that he has like a bajillion other things going on. And they say by Christmas or something like that, right?
Right.
Fine. It's December 20th here in Chicago, Illinois, USA. We'll wait for the next 5 days to see if a deal will close.
Yeah. I think it's going to be the richest deal.
Absolutely, 100%. And if I was a betting man, I would say that deal happens within the next 3 days.
I think so too. I agree. I think the deal is already right there. He just needs to sign it. And with Toto, I think he just started to press the ink into the paper.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen when he signs that contract, Joy?
8th World Championship.
Exactly. He's going to hop in that W12.
Absolutely.
And in his mind, you know what's going to be on a loop? He's not going to say it to Bono or anybody else because that's going to be weird when the F1 cameras and production team catches it. But you know what's going to be inside his helmet the whole time?
What is it?
I'm about to show you domination.
You think that song plays in his mind as he's driving? I'm pretty sure. I would play that song.
And his like 50 million other demo tracks that he's hiding from us.
Could you imagine Lewis Hamilton winning Grand Prix, but in between during the Grand Prix, he's just thinking about the next song he's writing?
I'm sure he already has like the
I'm pretty
baseline
sure
for it in
he's
his
got an
Bose
album.
headphones.
Yeah, he's got an album full for this season.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But yes, that is Mercedes right
Right.
now, and I am more than happy with the deals that haven't gone down in the Brackley end of the Formula One world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, any more, Wes? Any more thoughts?
No, man, I'm still kind of sad that the season's over,
Yeah.
but I'm smiling because the season occurred,
Right.
and I'm ready for 2021. I'm ready to see what kind of history is going to be made,
Mm.
what kind of storylines are going to be created, and
Can't wait for
it's
Drive
gonna.
to Survive.
Well, maybe you are. I'm
Okay.
not,
Okay.
but uh, we get to see for 2021 who's hot, who's not,
Who's hot?
who's
Who's not?
who's bulling and who's barren.
All right. All right, Running Back Nation. Thank you so much for tuning in for the pretty much the last race review for F1. Now we will continue to cover Formula 1 when the news and the rumors keep flowing through. Of course they are, because the season is almost about to start, right? It's going to be in March. When the preseason testing happens. So it's 3 months. Trust me, 3 months goes by pretty fast nowadays. So thank you so much, Running Back Nation, for tuning in. Thank you so much for being there, and yeah, thank you so much for listening to us, for our opinions.
Yes, Running Back Nation, we are really appreciative of you. Um, Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Maraming salamat for everything. For taking the time to listen to us argue, listen to us try and be reasonable, the whole shebang, the whole shebang. Or as or let's say thank you in a language that the listeners would understand. Joy, grazie ragazzi,
Grazie, ragazzi.
and yes, Running Back Nation, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. Stay safe. If you're able to get the vaccine, go get it and keep it on track.